Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into what is, quite frankly, one of the most thrilling, cinematic, true stories of the 20th century. We're talking about a real-life epic of espionage, faith, and sheer unbelievable defiance. We're looking at the life of Andrew Vanderbilt, better known to the world simply as Brother Andrew. This is the story of a guy who looked at the absolute most heavily fortified borders on Earth and just decided, you know what? I'm gonna cross them anyway. Now, I want you to picture this for a second. It's the absolute height of the Cold War. You're pulling up to a heavily guarded, incredibly tense military checkpoint. Armed guards are meticulously inspecting every single inch of every vehicle that passes through. And the stakes? Well, the discovery of contraband means immediate arrest, brutal interrogation, and likely years in a Soviet bloc gulag. Yet right there in the middle of it all is one man, totally unarmed, just carrying a cargo of banned books hidden inside a small car. It really begs the question, how does one man bypass an entire empire with nothing but a small car and hidden books? To really grasp this historical adventure, we have to go back to the very beginning. Okay, let's jump straight into Section 1, The Reluctant Adventurer. Andrew's life was practically defined by conflict from day one. He was born into a really poor farming family near Amsterdam back in 1928. His childhood was basically swallowed up by the horrors of World War II, and he actually survived the brutal German occupation of the Netherlands. He was a kid totally fascinated by adventure. So naturally, the minute the war was over, he went looking for it and joined the Royal Netherlands East Indies Army. But his grand search for battlefield glory, it was abruptly cut short. While he was deployed in Indonesia, he suffered a completely devastating ankle injury. Just like that, in a flash, his military career was over. He was sent home, totally broken in both body and spirit. But, it was actually in that dark place of physical ruin that a completely new adventure started. During his incredibly long, painful recovery process, Andrew started reading the Bible. And this wasn't just a casual flip through the pages kind of read. It led to a profound spiritual transformation. He ended up completely surrendering his life to Jesus Christ. This newfound faith totally radically redirected his life's path, eventually propelling him to a Bible college over in Glasgow, Scotland. He was no longer a soldier for the Dutch army, but make no mistake, he was about to step onto a very, very different kind of battlefield. Which brings us to Section 2, the call. To really grasp what he was up against, we need to define the immense, terrifying obstacles staring him in the face, the Iron Curtain. Now, we're not talking about lines drawn on a map here. These were heavily guarded, heavily militarized borders completely separating Eastern Europe from the West. Behind this literal curtain, communist governments were ruthlessly, systematically suppressing religious freedom. Christianity was severely restricted, forced entirely underground, and constantly monitored by the secret police. So fast forward to 1955. Andrew takes a trip behind that curtain to attend a gathering in Poland, and what he found there absolutely shocked him. He didn't just find a political struggle. He discovered his brothers and sisters living in severe, crushing isolation. They had almost no Bibles, virtually no Christian books, and absolutely zero pastoral training. But most importantly, they lacked the encouragement and fellowship of the global church. They literally felt completely forgotten by the world. Right then and there, Andrew made a defining choice. He decided he was going to bring the global church directly to them. All right, let's get into the most intense part. Section 3, Crossing the Threshold. Brother Andrew didn't just sneak into one country and call it a day. He successfully infiltrated a truly formidable list of Soviet bloc nations. We're talking Romania, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, East Germany, and literally the Soviet Union itself. He would pack his small car with secretly hidden Bibles and just drive right up to the borders. The threat hanging over him was constant. Every single border inspection was a massive roll of the dice, where losing meant losing his freedom entirely. You might be wondering, how on earth did he survive this? Well, before reaching those absolutely terrifying checkpoints, he would often pray a very specific, incredibly simple prayer. Lord, you made blind eyes see. Now, please make seeing eyes blind. Time after time, in these absolute nail-biting moments where heavily armed guards were literally rifling through his car, they would inexplicably just overlook boxes of Bibles lying in plain sight. These miraculous escapes didn't just keep him out of a cold prison cell, they became the legendary core of his ministry, ultimately earning him the famous nickname God's Smuggler. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of the conflict here. On one hand, you have supreme weakness. One guy, a tiny car, and some hidden books. On the other hand, you've got heavily guarded, militarized borders backed by massive surveillance-heavy communist regimes. It's a classic David and Goliath scenario, right? And it proved that in his worldview, having extraordinary ability wasn't the requirement. The only requirement was simple: radical obedience. Let's look at how this grew in Section 4, Building an Alliance. What started as Andrew's solo missions laid the groundwork for what would eventually become Open Doors. The mission evolved in 4 really crucial steps. It kicked off with Step 1, the Bible smuggling. But as the network grew, they realized the persecuted church actually needed a lot more. So it evolved into Step 2, providing vital leadership training and discipleship. Then came Step 3, bringing emergency relief and trauma care to those who are physically suffering for their faith. And finally, Step 4, actively advocating for religious freedom on the global world stage. Practical service and prayer became unbelievably powerful tools of support. And the craziest part? His adventure didn't just magically end when the Berlin Wall came down. After the Cold War, Andrew didn't retire to some quiet, peaceful life. Instead, he immediately turned his attention to entirely new frontiers of danger, expanding his ministry straight into the Middle East and China. He fearlessly sought out respectful dialogue with political and religious leaders in some of the most volatile, dangerous regions on the planet, firmly believing that simply having a conversation could open doors for the gospel and improve conditions for suffering believers everywhere. Which perfectly sets up Section 5, an enduring global legacy. 1967, this was the year everything changed on a truly global scale. This was the year his autobiography, titled God's Smuggler, was officially published, and it didn't just do well. It became an absolute international phenomenon. It sold millions of copies. It basically pulled back the curtain on the persecuted church and ended up inspiring entire generations of Christians to get involved in supporting global missions. And that initial spark mobilized an organization that is absolutely thriving today. From just one man's little car, Open Doors now operates in over 70 countries as a massive global ministry. On top of that, they publish the highly respected World Watch List every single year. That list casts a bright spotlight on the places around the globe where Christians are facing the absolute highest levels of persecution. Brother Andrew actually lived to see the incredible fruits of all this labor. He passed away in the Netherlands on September 27, 2022, at the age of 94. Christians all over the world paused to honor him, not just as some author or a founder, but as one of the bravest, most courageous, and defiant missionaries of the modern era. He left us with so many profound thoughts throughout his life, but honestly, this one just hits the nail on the head. There is no panic in heaven. God has no problems, only plans. So the crucial point is this. Brother Andrew's life wasn't defined by his own physical strength or tactical brilliance. It was defined by his total, unwavering confidence in God's sovereignty. He looked at his own weakness not as a barrier, but as the literal perfect opportunity for God to get to work. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with something to chew on. Brother Andrew showed us that God's work requires simple obedience rather than some kind of extraordinary, superhuman ability. So, if a farm boy with a bad ankle can bypass the military might of the entire Soviet Union, what iron curtains are waiting for you to cross today? Think about that. Thank you so much for joining me for this incredible, epic journey, and I really encourage you to keep exploring the amazing stories of those who changed the world simply by choosing to step forward.